All right. The hour of 6:30 having arrived, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Columbus Plan Commission for Thursday, January 14th. Can everybody hear us all right before we start? Yeah.
You don't want that plugged in.
Sorry, I just realized. Can everybody hear? Okay. We're getting the high sign from the video participants. Okay. Meeting has been called to order. Matt, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Monday.
Present.
Bastian. Here. Lewis. And Piper.
Here.
Ryan, Parpart, and Highland are excused. We do have a quorum.
Okay. All right, item 3, this meeting has been properly noticed according to state law.
Yes.
All right. Item 4, we have a printed agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend the agenda as written.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to work with this agenda. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. This will be our agenda for this evening. Item 5 on the agenda.
Sorry, here I am.
Okay.
All right. Technical adjustments complete. Item 5 on the agenda, approve minutes from December 10th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting. That's in your packet. Please review, and I will entertain a motion to approve or amend.
Piper will make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from December 10th, 2020.
I have a motion. Yep, got it. All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. All right. Minutes are approved. Item 6, citizen comments. No one's present personally in the room. Is there anybody present virtually that wishes to comment on items other than things that will be addressed in the agenda? Anything you're seeing, Matt?
No.
All right. I'll close the period for citizen comments, and we'll move on to number 7. New business. We have a public hearing tonight regarding the request of Gatestone Properties LLC for a conditional use permit to allow the outdoor sales of vehicles for parcel number 11211-1512.03 located at 200 Commerce Drive. All right. Well, I will open the public hearing. Matt, do you want to give a brief overview? Then we'll move on to any applicant comments and then comments from the public.
I do not see the applicant present online. I thought they were going to be present tonight, but they're not. So this is very similar to the project. So eventually, Gates Automotive, which bought the speaking to the microphone, which purchased the strip center out at 250 Commerce Drive in the Commerce Center Industrial Park, came back and bought the former Shopko building at 200 Commerce Drive, and their plans are to do a large indoor showroom, a lot of online vehicle sales, and then obviously what they need the conditional use permit for, because it's a separate parcel, they do need a conditional use permit for this exact same use that they got the conditional use permit before, which is the sale and storage of outdoor vehicles for that I-1 zoning district. So they had several options we discussed, but ultimately they decided to just get a separate permit for that property, and that is what you see in front of you. It's fairly simple from the staff point of view. I really did not have any major issues. Once again, we're using the conditional use permit form that will be recorded at the county. And the conditions that are in that conditional use permit are basically the same as the conditions from the past conditional use. I will note that I kind of used to save legal work with our city attorney, I did basically update this myself. I did miss one typo in there, so if you see a date that's from 2020, obviously that will be updated. But the one I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to that I added, because I don't think we were clear on this last time, was number 10, where all vehicles in the grantee's inventory shall be located in marked parking stalls on the property. And property is defined earlier in this document, so it basically means anything. I just felt that, at the risk of having them park all over the lot and just kind of have it all helter-skelter, having it, a little bit more clear on where their inventory should be stored, I thought was something that was, I think, beneficial to the city. So I guess with that, I'll open it up for any questions. I mean, or if there's not any questions at this time, we could ask for questions from the public and then close it and then ask for questions in the deliberation phase as well.
Sure. I was going to see if there's any questions from individual commissioners. Last time we kind of went round robin just to avoid some of those awkward moments with people talking over each other on Zoom. So, Matt, would you just go ahead and call on commissioners one by one? If you
Sure,
don't have anything, just go ahead and pass. This is maybe a time for asking you questions about the application, then we can deliberate more after.
Yeah, we'll, Eric, I'll start with you. We'll do those on Zoom first. You gotta unmute yourself. Oh, so then it's us. Great. Eric, what did you have to say?
No questions at this time.
Okay. No questions. How about you, Brad?
No questions for me, thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I don't know if this is relevant, and if not, tell me and I'll let alone, but you said it's for sale, it's a sales room on the inside as well, correct?
No.
No.
Sales room, the interior sales floor is prohibited or is allowed by code. So you only need the conditional use for the outdoor storage and sale of vehicles.
Okay, but
So if you
there-
had an indoor showroom in this zoning district, you do not need you'd still need zoning approvals, you just wouldn't need a conditional use permit.
okay, my question may be off topic, then if it is, Jen, tell me and I'll let it die, but there might be a need for a change of use for this building, because if you're having vehicles on the inside, which means that there's probably going to be gasoline on the end, in the engines, it should be.
They're going to need to get state approved plans for the work they're doing for the building. So you're talking more on the state approved with like DSPS.
Yes.
I will confirm, and if not, we'll make them look into that, because you're absolutely right that it is a change of use.
And then also gasoline, and, you know, should, you know.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how they're, moving, you're right, there's probably gonna be some gasoline in the vehicles. I really, I don't know what they do when they put them in an indoor showroom like that, whether they're a full tank of gas or half tank, or, you know, maybe they somehow move them in there without gas, I don't
I
know.
know when I purchased the vehicle, I drove it off the lot and had a full tank. I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
it's something to think
Yeah,
about, is what I'm saying.
no, that is a very good point.
And I know it's not necessarily our purview, but, you know, then, you know, down the line, it gets missed, and.
But it is our responsibility to make sure that those rules are followed. I mean, that's something that we should definitely follow up on.
And that's all I have, thank you.
And last,
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. This recordable document you said was taken from the document for their use of the, what I'll call that strip mall building on that same property?
yes, that was the
Okay.
the template that I used.
Okay. Just a question. Did the Ford dealership down on Transit also have a conditional use? Or is that property not zoned industrial?
That, I believe that property is zoned highway commercial.
Okay.
Also, I
Okay.
would say that predates me, and I would say that, also just want to share that, I'm not entirely sure, I'd have to go look through the file.
Okay.
To my knowledge, until the city attorney recommended, he's like, hey, we should be recording these with the county, and our new administrator, Kyle Ellison, agreed, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so that site
it's kind of a
predates this
newer-
practice.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because the conditional use permit really is a legal document that gives them rights to use the property for, as long as they meet the conditions that are in the conditional use.
Right,
So-
right. Okay. My second question was about your number 10, all vehicles in the grantee's inventory shall be located in marked parking stall on the property. Does that preclude the owner from marking it in a different way? Must they use the markings that are out there today?
No, well, we could put as shown on the site plan that was submitted, because there is a
Okay.
there is a layout in Appendix B that shows,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. But your intent was to have it
correct,
in an orderly manner on the site?
yes.
So, okay.
Hi, I'm Troy Gates.
Hi, Troy. Okay.
No, it's okay.
No, that's all right. Just to catch you up to speed, we opened the public hearing. Matt gave a short, just a short intro to the project, and I was the last of 4 commissioners. We went kind of round robin just to give comments. Nobody else, there's 2 people on Zoom. They didn't have any. Paul had a comment about vehicles being indoors and how does the gasoline and hazard chemicals kind of get dealt with, right? And I just had a couple of questions that you had heard, so.
Yeah, why don't we have him?
Yeah, you wanna,
Well, I'll start with, why don't we start with Paul's question first?
I just, my question was, I'm an architect, and I would imagine that the building would need a change of use, to be, because right now, you know, it's used for, it was used for retail, and now it's still used for retail, I guess, but, now you're putting vehicles inside, and to get said vehicles inside, they presumably have to have gasoline in them, and I guess I'm also, you know, concerned about, you know, like, whether the construction has to be updated to reflect, you know, like a 5-hour or 3-hour wall between any, you know, non-combustible spaces, whether it be an office space to the showroom, whatever. So I just want to make sure that's on the record that somebody, whether it be us or bill inspector, needs to look into that, whether, you know, to make sure everything follows suit.
Yeah, so our professional architect engineer that we're working with on the project has submitted the state-approved plans for garage doors to be added to the side of the building that faces 151. And as part of that state approval, that's of course one of the statutes you need to comply with, is how many gallons of combustible fuel can you have inside of the building at any one time? And we are far below what those thresholds are, the way that it's registered. It's a completely sprinklered building. And then the current plan is to continue doing all of the mechanical service work in our current building, and we're going to use that as an indoor showroom. So that's the plan, and of course we'll be going through the state approval process. Actually, that's already approved, now that I think about it, by the state.
Okay, I'm just asking questions, because
Yeah.
later on down the road, like, things, like, oh, that wasn't discussed, and all of a sudden, bam, now, then it's not a non-issue later on, so. I'll
Right.
Make sure it's an issue up front.
I owned 18 collision repair centers since 1990, so I dealt with this all along. And yeah, you have to have the hazardous waste, containers. You have to have the company signed up to come and take it away. All of that is all set up as well.
Troy, could you send
Thank
me
you.
a copy of the approved, I'm sure they give you some sort of cover letter of approval saying, or, whatever they gave you for approval, just so we have that for.
Yeah,
our file.
absolutely. Yeah,
So-
because you
so we
should
know-
have that. Yeah.
Yes. And maybe our building inspector does, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't.
But it'll be easy enough for us to send it.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. We worked with the building inspector, and here, that's for the Columbus area.
Well, Matt, you had given an introduction.
Yeah.
Troy, I didn't know if you wanted to give us a brief overview yourself. Doesn't need to be real lengthy, but
Sure.
if you're free to.
Sure. So I lived in the area my whole life. I went to UW-Madison for business. Started Gates Auto Body in 1990, actually not far from here, right by the North Bristol Sportsman's Club, about a 6-minute drive from here. So then I grew that business and sold that in 2018 to Gerber Collision Centers. My brother's been in the business his whole career, so he convinced me to go back out of retirement and start up a new enterprise. I also started a software company in 1999, grew that to about 90 employees, and sold that to Enterprise Rent-A-Car in 2015. So I'm sort of a serial entrepreneur, I guess you would say, and this is the next evolution. So the concept behind adding Gates Auto in Columbus is that we're looking for high visibility but lower cost locations, so that we can offer similar to what you see advertised with Carvana and Vroom, where they're trying to lower the overhead cost and provide a direct-to-consumer type of experience. So be at the top tier of independent used car dealers, and we're very well financed. Of course, things went really well for me when I sold all the collision centers to a publicly traded company out of Canada. So that's the concept, is to have Wisconsin's largest indoor showroom, and that's why we're petitioning tonight for this rezoning. We have the zoning to use the inside only right now, and of course what we're petitioning for right now is for the outside to allow us to park vehicles there too. So that's the concept. So we've got about 74 vehicles that we're able to have on display right now at our current location. We'll have around 55 inside. And then the goal is to have, we'll see how sales go, but, probably 50 to 100 on the outside. That's a brief overview, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
That's perfect. All right.
And one of the things that we put in this condition that we didn't put in the last one that I clarified with them before, and just to make you aware, is that, after thinking about it, we didn't really specify it with the other property, where and how the car should be parked. So we just put a condition in here that all vehicles in the grantee's inventory shall be stored in marked stalls in the property. And
Right.
Chairman Monday asked the question, and it's going to be as shown on Appendix B in the application. So just so you're aware, that's just something I think, part of the rationale behind having a conditional use for this is that make sure that things are stored properly and look appropriate, so they're, as people drive by, the commercial areas look visually appealing. So
Right.
I just, that was one that may have been an oversight in the last one, And I thought maybe that would be something we should add, so.
It's a good idea.
Just to make you aware.
Yeah, and hopefully you've seen that's what we've done
Yeah.
the whole
no,
time with what we, I mean, we want it to look like a inviting business, so.
Yeah, but the more specific, the better, because, you know, as we were discussing earlier, I mean, this is a legal document that does run with the land, so I mean, it's, having those conditions in place is, I think, good for both. So-
Right. Maybe the only thing I would add to that is that there's large sections on the side facing 151 that are not marked with spaces right now
Mhm.
because they were set up for semi trucks to come back there and use the loading dock. So if we use the same parameters as how it's marked out now, we may eventually, we don't need the parking now, but we may eventually add more parking stalls for what would have been a semi turnaround back there.
I think at that point, I mean, it would just be an amendment, and you'd have to.
Okay.
And we can talk about what that process would be.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
And that was kind of the nature of my question was, are you stuck with what you have out there, or what's the possibility in the future for rearranging it if needed? Because the
Right.
point is to have a neat and orderly site, which I'm sure you're interested in too,
Right.
right? So, so if that's the intent, we want to make sure that that intent can get fulfilled, even if there's, you know, there's a path for that in the future.
Right.
So,
Understood.
Yeah.
Completely.
Okay,
yeah.
we've gone through the commissioners. As part of this public hearing, the public has an opportunity to comment. So I'll call once for any comments from the public that might be present. Are you seeing anybody on Zoom, Matt?
No,
Okay,
oh, I mean, there's people on Zoom, but I don't see anybody using like the raise your hand. for
nobody
chat.
waving their hand.
Otherwise, they can always unmute themselves and interject at any point.
Okay. I'll call a second time for any public comment on this conditional use permit. I'll call a third and final time for any public comments before I close the hearing. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on the conditional use permit and open deliberation among the Plan Commission. So, Commissioners, do you have any additional questions that arose during the short presentation or other questions?
None here.
I'm seeing,
Okay, hearing no other comments about it, I will entertain a motion to recommend either approval or recommend denial of this conditional use permit to, oh, no, this doesn't go to council.
this does, we're making a recommendation.
Recommendation to council, okay. I'll entertain a motion to recommend to council either to approve or deny the conditional use permit as applied for.
Piper will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit and recommend it to city council for approval.
I assume that's with the conditions in the
With-
permit.
yes, with the
I
con-
just-
I'm sorry, with the conditions
Yeah, no, that's fine,
stated
that's
therein.
fine. That's a second by Lewis.
Got it. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none.
What were you saying, Eric?
You had noted, Matt, that they were gonna be sending you the copy of the state approval,
Yeah,
just so that's documented, but not tied to the conditional approval here, or our recommendation, but just making sure it's
No,
documented.
yeah, no, I need that for the, I should have that for the file anyway, so.
All right. I have a motion and a second to recommend approval, given the conditions as presented. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, recommend to council to grant conditional use permit.
Okay. And I'll follow up with you on those dates for the next meetings, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you,
Great.
Troy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Troy.
Drive
Drive safely.
ladies.
All right, moving on to item 7C under new business. We have an informational presentation regarding a proposed development at 336 North Spring Street. Matt, take it away.
Sure. I know we,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? It's really hard to hear them from Zoom. Is there a problem? When the air speaks, it's really difficult.
hey, Lisa? Is there any way it's not coming in overhead, so we can't hear as good out here, or some, well,
I'd better say now than.
no, that's fine.
Try now?
Hey, Eric, test this for us, please.
Test 1, 2.
No, it's still not coming in overhead. Well, it's,
Sometimes it's really loud.
the speaker, it should pick up on the speakers.
Yeah, it should. I'm hearing it back there, so.
We should trade spots.
Let's do.
I don't think you can social distance in that room.
All right. That's not gonna do it either. We should have a line in option here.
It's a pain.
Well, but I mean, it might be an issue for others that speak, so.
Yeah. Okay. Speakers.
Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us.
There we go. Did you want to try now? Anyone?
Any better?
Woo!
Yeah,
I got feedback even.
I should turn,
Turn it down now.
yeah, I think I will. All right. So, here, I can, I'm gonna share my screen unless, somebody, Kelly or, Sarah or Jamie want to lead this, but, so I was approached by Kelly Thompson for an informational meeting for some upcoming zoning approvals that most likely conditional use for 336 North Spring Street. We have a proposal for kind of a mixed-use complex. Really, the biggest trigger for the conditional use is basically an assembly hall, event center that can accommodate up to, I think it's 114 people is the max in the bar area, 72 in the event area. With the sites, obviously, there's a lot of questions from city staff. Looking at the approval process, they would need a conditional use. I think the biggest, I think there's a few hurdles to get through, but the initial one was, finding a site that with the parking and addressing the parking, so, when they had events there, that they had a parking lot that could accommodate it. And what we have tonight is a conceptual plan. So this isn't anything that's really up for review. It's the first stab at what their proposal is. I'm sure this will get refined as we work through the conditional use process. And there's several elements that I've talked to with the architect on this project that need to be resolved as they move forward. So with that, I'll kick it over to Kelly. Are you going to lead this at first?
Yeah, I would like to
Okay.
start by thanking you all for considering just an informational meeting. I think it's very important for us to get some early feedback to help with the success on the first try with you here in a month or so. Jamie and Sarah reached out to us to help them with their vision for this site, and we share in their excitement for the possibilities As a small architecture firm, we're on Sun Prairie just down the street. We're very passionate about adaptive reuse of our historic structures, and we're very excited about not only a fun project, but working with this lovely young couple of father and mother of a new baby. And they look absolutely amazing for not getting any sleep. I would like you to hear from them first, maybe get a sense of their passion, their vision for this site, and then I can kind of dive into some of the technical details that we're looking at without being too definitive for it, but some of the things that we're doing to help them realize their vision.
So, first and foremost, my wife Sarah and I really want to thank you for the opportunity to be here as well. Secondly, we'd like to thank Matt for putting us onto this property, because he had been searching for well over a year, and based on his recommendation, we looked at this place and immediately fell in love with not only the art or the structure, the beams, just the overall character and appeal. We want to really do it justice and bring it back to its true core and restore it to its former glory. Not only from a safety standpoint, but also from an opportunity for the entire city to enjoy. We originally were looking at it to maintain its original purpose. I got a hold of the grandchildren of Carl Ivish, who originally built this structure in 1920. And they said that they always called it the shop, and I had fully intended to just make this place a shop, but after walking through this place, my wife and I both agree that this building needs to be shared by many others as well. And the property, as unique as it is, it has the opportunity to do so, we believe, and we just we want to put our best foot forward and be upfront and try to work through this process together and making sure that we're working together versus just trying to force something through.
Can I share my screen so my pointer can I can have control over my little pointer?
Sure.
It says host as disabled participant screen sharing.
Can you share it now?
Yay! Okay. All right.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Yep.
All
I don't know
right.
why I yelled that.
Okay. The structure itself, I can't pronounce the name of the original builders of this thing. It's a whole lot of consonants but it is a unique structure. It is arguably or possibly a landmark. It's eligible for landmarking. It'll take a little more, a few more arguments to make that happen. If indeed we go down that path of making it historically significant, registering as a historically significant structure. There's something very unique about it in the way it was constructed. We gathered a little bit more information this morning, actually, about how this concrete structure is assembled, and it may be tied to some early studies from UW-Madison and their building sciences, and that is a spin-off of the original way we built concrete silo structures and farm structures, and some studies that were done at that time in that technology to be able to provide an airspace within those concrete walls. So we have that itself, if it is really truly tied to that, to those particular early 1900 studies by UW-Madison, that alone would probably make it qualified as a registered for registry at the national level. It's pretty cool. And that's something that's a surprise to Sarah and Jamie. We just found that out about 4 hours ago, and we've been working crazy since then. In the world, if we were all doctors and we would say this is a complicated case, we would say this is a complicated case. Where the site is located, both of these sites are located within a certain amount of distance to a navigable waterway, so the site has to contend with that and provide some restrictions for that. And of course, we need to find some real estate for some parking for that. And how is that dealt with for land use? And how does this project is friendly with the neighbors? And how does it work with the railroad? And again, how does it feel at home and support the community and those around it, as well as provide an excellent opportunity for a thriving, successful business. And so looking through that lens, we're small business owners, and we're also pretty passionate about partnering with entrepreneurs and visionaries, just like Jamie and Sarah. It excites us very, very much. And with our historic preservation background, our adaptive reuse, this particular structure is it's low lying fruit when it comes to its adaptability. So it can easily go someplace. It's pretty much open for 3 floors, and from a structural standpoint, it's solid. Not a whole lot of necessary attention to that. And from a life safety standpoint, we got some exits to contend with, as we increase the occupancy load and the basics of, a few toilets and a good air handling system and some other technical things that I'm sure that Chris, the building inspector, would be very interested in. But from a site standpoint, how is it used and how does it flow, and how do we get people in and out of the building, both with mobility concerns, and how do we get public to that from public ways. So the second site, that actually includes 2 sites, 2 separate sites that are separated by the end of Spring Street. The illustration we have here in this preliminary concept does have parking for approximately 52 on the left side here. And this shows some preliminary conceptual screening that would be required by the zoning code to care for screening to the neighborhood, to the neighboring homes, the residential. We'll pay close attention to lighting to make sure none of that light is spilling out off the property line. There's some, we have some things to deal with the railroad when it comes to their easements and things of that sort. But functionally, we have to be sensitive to the users of this site as well, to ensure that their safety, are not wandering onto the railroad tracks and things of that sort. So as you can see, we've kind of developed a pedestrian flow from this parking lot that kind of moves people away from the hazards of the railroad track and brings them into the building itself that we're calling the archive. And we have shown a logical termination to North Spring Street in a cul-de-sac type scenario. We hope that the city is welcome to participate in helping terminate the street, because it definitely divides these 2 properties that have been purchased to support each other. This also gives an opportunity to provide access to this back home and this property, as well as provide access to this property that's over here and it's kind of off this illustration. There currently is an existing easement for that property owner. Additionally, there currently is an active access to the front of this building, the neighboring property. Jamie and that property owner are in conversation about how the continual use of that space, however that may look. So that is part of the conversation right now. This site, the second site or the primary site, is pretty limited in the way we can develop it beyond the way it's already developed, because the building itself is pretty much this particular corner right here is right at 75 feet to the what we call the ordinary high water mark on the water. Of course, there's some official verification of that that will need to be done, but that essentially tells us that we're going to be very careful about expanding the footprint of that building and are going to avoid it because it might kick off some things, some struggles with the DNR we wish not to tackle. So we're going to try to keep the development within the footprint of that building and deal with it there. So there are currently 3 accessory structures out there. One home that happens to be right here. It's of net zero value. It needs to be taken down. Although there is a desk in there, that's really cool. That ought to be pulled out before that thing comes down. Then there's 2 other structures that, vision-wise, what happens to those for now and into the future. We recognize that because these buildings are all within that 75 feet, they are non-compliant structures. So we want to work with those footprints and not forsake those footprints, and not try to expand beyond those footprints when it comes to use of outdoor space. Again, this is all conceptual stuff. We have some technical details to contend with that, but we intend to try to use these current footprints for outdoor gathering space for visitors to the event center. We have also noticed something. We acknowledge that the city as a whole potentially wants to provide some connectivity from the park to the downtown area, and offering up an opportunity when that time comes to have that connectivity come through this property, if indeed it ever happens. So as a partner with the city, that would be something that would be welcome even to Jamie and Sarah. Turns out that Jamie and Sarah do own this home, that it's an isolated kind of site, so we have anticipated that any parking that they may need shared within this larger parking lot, they would have an opportunity to park, so we've addressed that. So at this point in time, before I kind of move on if you're interested so how we're going to be using that building and how we're proposing it, is there anybody there that may have a question regarding the site usage, how we're dealing with the early conceptually dealing with some of the technical parts of the zoning code and requirements? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to share that at a certain point, and I think I've shared this with you, Kelly, already, that the staff level review, like our city engineer, probably, like stormwater, utility connections and things of that nature, sit down and have a discussion on, where are these things available and how are things going to get done. And at a certain point, I think the neighbors also need to be brought into that conversation. Obviously, right now, this is still preliminary, so we need to, at a certain point, meet, and I'll probably be in touch with you sometime in the future to set that up. Obviously, anything that's discussed at those meetings ultimately are just making recommendations to boards to actually take action on. So, but it's kind of, they're basically working meetings to kind of get through some of the mainly the utility issues and stormwater. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, we have had some productive correspondence with some of your engineers at the city. We are aware of where the existing utilities are and how we are going to bring those into the serve the site. Okay, thank you. How we're going to serve that site with those utilities. We've actually gone to the point that we've got a utility contractor that is starting to study the cost of that and starting to try to get the groundwork done on how to work with the railroad about getting permission to bore under their railroad track. So that conversation has been opened up. We have Edge Consulting is our civil engineer of choice on this one. They have done a little bit of work, I understand, in the city there, and they've already completed the survey itself of these two sites. And information is being pulled together. So we definitely look forward to some formal conversations with the city engineering staff to start nailing down some of the very technical requirements. Fortunately, I don't see any real major hurdles there. It's just a matter of defining those and making sure that that is implemented into the design and are, again, leveraging every possible conversation to make our formal submittal here a success on the first try. So, and thank you, Matt, for all the conversation we had thus far, and it's been very productive, and very helpful. It's good to know that it brings a lot of confidence to move forward. As using the space, I pulled up the lowest level of this building. It is a 3-level building. We hope to split it into some usable, leasable space. That'll make a banker or two uber happy that there may be some opportunity to do that. We recognize that that'll have some impact on the way shared parking is cared for. So we do intend to address that and be upfront with that and how that's all going to work. But there is a desire to be able to lease some of that space out as a revenue stream. And what does that space look like, and where does it operate? How is it not conflict with the assembly uses that are above it? We hope to be able to provide a more formal storefront for that in cooperation with neighbors, be able to get down to grade, because currently that lowest level is about 2 feet below grade. We'd like to try to excavate that out, provide a more formal walkable storefront, and also provide a loading area or some place to possibly drop off some items for the shop proper as they construct some things down there and restore wood. Jamie did mention his passion for restoration of wood items and furnitures and furnishing and things of that sort, and their desire to put a pretty nice wood shop down there. But part of that vision is there's several large barn door type and carriage door types, carriage doors on this building that are going to be implemented into the design, but I can get to that. From a general space usage, and this is the catering kitchen, a large area for assembly, put in like a bar area that would be customary to a venue like this. But from a design standpoint, Jamie had mentioned that this real intent to be true to the original glory of this structure, and it's expressing the structure itself. That the archive hall here is what we're calling. It does have it's a clean span all the way across by these large trusses. In the upper level, it's really kind of cool and unique in its design. But we're functionally, we have to get a couple of exits from the upper level and from this level out. There's a desire, and this front vestibule this front entrance to the building be more of a monumental kind of entrance for wedding parties and what have you. And we can show you what that might look like in elevation. But to celebrate that as the primary entrance to the building, and down and be able to develop the architecture around that, the functional pieces of a vestibule, and have that not compete with the exposed woodwork and the inside of the concrete walls here. It's the concrete inside the concrete wall looks just like the outside of the concrete wall, and the way it was constructed in the celebration of the windows and things of that sort, and the concrete mass. So all the design solutions are really going to be intentional but not competing with that original, with the density of that existing structure and the wood structure that is within it. So, and of course, the back room, it's typical restrooms and things of that sort of the functional things. And, but within this building, we're going to rehabilitate a current door that's a large barn door that's there, and just leave it, the same way the barn doors that are on the front facade. And the barn door that actually covers up this facade, move it outward so it's actually celebrated from the outside. And I got a better building elevation to show that. But as we move upstairs to the upper level, which would be more of the auditorium or the ceremonial space, the ceremonial space is split up by these large roof trusses, these large trusses, and these trusses are bottom bearing. And I recall one of the members here, did you say if you're an architect on the board here? So these large trusses, and they're 10 feet tall on one end and 8 feet tall on the other end, and to be able to occupy that space, and the vision that you're to be able to work in around those trusses and celebrate those within a space, and then have the ceremonies up there and still safely get people in and out, and have some restrooms up there, and notice a little bride's room for the bridal party, and so out front, and then again a monumental stair that allows openness, that doesn't at the upper level doesn't necessarily have to be enclosed because the exit distances all work. This is a nice smaller space, so it provides us a world of opportunity. And since we are, it will be sprinkled, it also offers us all kind of fun opportunities and latitude to do some things. It's all wood interiors, all wood construction, all wood structure, and things that sort of the concrete core. And the only really modest, small addition to it is providing a hoistway for a vertical lift in order to provide some necessary accessibility from grade to the middle level, to the main level, to the upper level. So we've got some fun, easy solutions for this, and they also want to celebrate and have some opportunity to move some of that assembly outside. So, a balcony out the front, and another balcony out the front, so that some people can gather outside as well, but not in large groups that we can end up with exiting problems and things of that sort. Somewhere modest groups that can come out and chat and get away from the noisiness of the outside, opportunity to take pictures and what have you. So again, this space, this structure itself is so easily adaptable to the program at hand, and with not a whole lot of disruption of things. The investments is going to be in a new mechanical system, all the new electrical stuff, because the electrical system in this thing is a mess. I think that there's a surprise that the place hadn't burned down by now. So that's all been taken out and ready for all new wires and all new panels and adequate service to do the things that we really want to do here. Right here is just conceptual. We're starting to think about how we're going to deal with the front facade and the main points of the building. I know This is again, now how are we gonna be a good neighbor? How are we gonna provide this thing with some presence, as people come up came up Spring Street? And, so this is, you know, on the outside, there's not a whole lot to do. You know, it's vision would be to clean the concrete and get it resealed and name it for what it is. You know, no pinks or blues or whites or whatever. Let's get it back to its raw concrete and protect it from weather infiltration, and then do a fenestration replacement, a window replacement, because you know they are the original wood windows. So being sensitive and respectful to that, bringing in, maintaining the glass size, and this would be something that would be consistent with Department of Interior standards for historic preservation. So whether it's a historic building or not, we're going to take that approach to any rehabilitation or replacement of components. This structure is very strong. It's very what we would call rhythmic in its facade, and we do not want to forsake that by any means. So a window replacement. This addition of this outside balcony, we're envisioning some steel and some very transparent kind of railings. That way, it's not again competing with that concrete facade and the solidness of that. So we're going to take down that chimney. That chimney is problematic, and so that chimney will come down. And you can see here how we implemented a hoistway kind of in the backdrop that will kind of lose itself on that. Any mechanical equipment that might land on the roof, will do our best to screen that in a sensitive way, so the neighbors are don't have to see that rooftop unit. Conceptually thought about some signage here. I'm a big fan of blade signs. They tend to really draw attention to themselves. They're from a historic standpoint, they're very consistent with what it would be for a building like this. But this is conceptual. But the signage is going to be understated, and again, it's not going to compete with the structure itself in any way. Currently, that you can see this is about the grade line here, we're proposing 2 new entrances into the suites. That happens to be that opening right there, that opening right there. Maintaining this opening right here, if everybody can see my cursor, maintaining that opening in that carriage house door, extending it down a little bit because it is a couple feet short, but making the carpentry modifications to get that door height. So when we were talking about celebrating existing solid wood doors, those would be visible behind these large sliding glass doors, and down here would demand a date. It would be forward of that. And then we can just put these doors next to it, and there we go. We got the same rhythm in the facade. We've got some approachable lower levels. This would be, I guess, arguably, this is the most present facade and the most demanding facade for those that are coming to the site as they park across the street and they come across the or navigate through that end of North Spring. And this is the monumental entrance that we were envisioning here, moving this barn door outboard and to celebrate that. And then the windows, the entry system itself, kind of getting lost in the shuffle. So if we have this light colored structure, this light gray colored structure, and the fenestration is all dark in color, black framing, things of that sort, it gets lost in that. It almost feels like a black hole. And in this particular instance, you're kind of envisioning the pattern of that fenestration to align with the door itself, because they can close this door and leave it closed, because it's not a required exit to the structure, right? So they can use that door in a way that, in a more monumental and ceremonial way, have that door, and they can open it for ways, or they can close it or whatever. So it gives them some flexibility to do some really fun things with that existing door. And there's no doubt in my mind that Jamie will make that thing beautiful, more beautiful than it is now. I'm actually kind of jealous that he gets to do it now and get to help. Well, then again, he has an offer to give him to help him out. But this is, as we're developing this vision and for this, and how to deal with the historic structure itself, and the openings, and being true to it, the easy adaptation for their vision in this thing. I hope that you all welcome it, and I welcome any early input that you may have. Again, if there's anything that you have that's critical, please share it with us. I'd rather know now than 2 months from now, when we come back to you with this. So, Jamie, do you have anything to add? Have I just said too much, or you just want me to hush? Or most importantly, Sarah, you're the quiet one. That's who we should ask first, Sarah. Do you have anything to add to this?
I think I just want to reiterate the fact that I want it to be such a universal space. So I foresee a lot of celebrations happening there, a lot of people kind of coming together beyond that of weddings. So I love doing art classes, and I want to support the art class community for students, for children, for adults. I also want to do birthday parties, graduation parties, other types of events along those lines. So I don't want to be pigeonholed as a wedding venue. So I think that's kind of the big thing I really want to stress.
Oh, I don't have anything. You were very detailed.
Mr. Modesty there. Anything from the Planning Commission? Any early input for us?
Matt, do you mind going round robin?
Sure. We'll do in person here first. Uriah, why don't you go first?
Sure. No. I like what I've seen so far. You don't have an elevation view of the riverside yet?
We've got one started.
Yeah. Okay.
I
I just didn't know if I missed it in my packet or not. Not a problem. Matt, will you just recap for the commission why this is a CUP? What is it zoned as, and what is triggering the CUP?
It's actually zoned industrial.
Okay.
The trigger for this is it's similar to Timpty trailers. When we reviewed the code, we had two different things, and one area was conditional use, and one area it wasn't. And reviewing under 114 section 12, the zoning administrator, may deem similar uses and go through the SIM process. So that's essentially what this was. So that's where the conditional use permit came in.
Okay.
This.
More or
For-
less
for
because
the
it's a
event
multi-use, multi-tenant potentially kind of
Yes,
thing. Okay.
Well, when I initially spoke with the applicant, I didn't really know of the event center part of the business. It was the reclaimed barnwood furniture making. It was more of it sounded, like it was a lot of it was more of a shop manufacturing type use. And I was like, well, this is nearby a site they were looking at. I'm like, and this is zone industrial. So I was like, this will be perfect. So, really the question then comes the event center. And, as I alluded to earlier, when I saw the proposal, I was like, okay, I asked for the plan of operation, which I put in your packet.
I did see that.
And, then the question is, well, how much parking do they need to have? And that's something that I think as they refine their site plan that we'll have to work through that, because obviously, there's a couple issues I think with the parking. I mean, obviously you don't want people parking on the street, but then with it being adjacent to the railroad, I think the safety component of it, making sure there's plenty of off-street parking, is even more important, just because of the proximity to the railroad. So the initial concept plan I like, but I still want to make sure and do the calculations and work through that and make sure that it's adequate. So
Sure. Okay.
um,
I'll say I have generally the same attitude. In other words, to you applicants, I think you're thinking about all the right things. I don't think that there is something that I noticed that you are not thinking about. I mean, you're thinking about the interaction with the railroad, which was a concern the last time this property was up for conditional use. Thinking about the proximity to the river, thinking about the neighbor, all those things. So you're thinking about all the right things, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking of something that you missed. So
and furthermore, I'll say I know one of the neighbors is actually participating tonight, which I think is great. Obviously, when we get to the conditional use permit part of the process, neighbors get direct notification that this is happening and there's a public hearing. So they'll have, and tonight's only for informational purposes, but I mean, in the future, I mean, the neighbors will have their chance to voice their opinion if they're not heard directly. And I've talked with both Kelly and Jamie and Sarah, and as they've indicated tonight, they're more than willing to work with the neighbors, which I think is really needed for this project. So, yeah, I guess this is about the commissioners, not me, so I'll go to the next, unless
Great.
you have anything further.
I was going to ask one thing of the applicants. I'm somewhat curious. What other venues like this did you visit in your development of this plan?
I didn't hear the question.
What other venues similar to this did you visit in your development of this plan? Just curious.
It is for, not, wedding specific, we've been to quite a few and been doing a lot of research, on basically everyone within 45 miles. But there is, and we've also reached out to wedding event planners and had them walk through and the functionality of this place in the field. This place has been told to us many times it's very unique and it really wouldn't compete with a lot of different venues because of it's so unique. Barn venues have really erupted lately. I would say in the last 10 to probably 10 to 15 years. But mainly we're just trying to stay ahead of this. This is really our first wedding or event venue that we own. I have extensive history in events from a corporate and manufacturer standpoint in much larger than we could ever imagine to host here. But I would say that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks.
Paul?
Again, I realize this is preliminary design, and with that said, overall, I love the design. And I think this was I have a list of questions that I was making as we were going. This was probably addressed earlier by you, but I believe the previous owner of the building was trying to, I guess, get a railroad crossing sign and work with the railroad because many of us in the community thought it was a safety issue with, like just having, because if there is, consumption of alcohol afterwards or even going there at nighttime, it's hard to judge when there's a train coming and, it's just propensity for danger at those crossings without a sign, but they were running into roadblocks, so I'm not sure how you have.
They installed a crossing there. It took a while, but
An arm that comes down?
well, there's not an arm, but
Okay.
there's actually a warning system there now when there wasn't one before. I mean, the previous owner worked with the Office of Commissioner of Railroads, which basically exclusively works with rail crossings, and there is enhanced safety. You're right. There's not arms that drop down right now, but I know there was a warning system that was upgraded from what was there previously.
Okay, fair enough.
I'd have to walk back there to see what it was, but I know based on conversations I've had with city staff, that was implemented, and conversations with the previous owner, that was implemented.
Fair enough.
Just wanted to interject, sorry.
No, and then I guess, I just have with the barn door on the, call it the left elevation, or right there, if that's allowed to be open, how is, it will sound be an issue towards the neighbors, if it's a wedding venue playing music, DJ, whatnot, how do you mitigate any sound issues if there are any perceived to be? Should I just read all my questions?
Actually, if I may interject,
Yep.
on the sound issue, there's a strategy in glass design that we have implemented for historic buildings, actually, and for HUD projects. So by taking and having an insulated glass panel that has a different thickness of glass outboard than it is inboard, it tends to mitigate sound transmission through those openings. That is something that we want to implement in the replacement of these windows. It will not only help mitigate sound coming into the building from a passing train, it will also help sound being contained in the building. Simply by changing the thickness of the glass from the inside board to the outboard of an insulated glass disrupts the sine wave of sound. And it does an incredible job of knocking down sound just by doing that. So that is a strategy that we're actually exploring with the window supplier.
Thank you for that. It sounds really interesting. I guess another question I would have, these are, I guess, site questions. Again, I know this is preliminary, but you wanted the questions earlier rather than later. I'm looking at the dumpster enclosure. I just, my mind's eye, I'm seeing, is that adequate? It seems really far for employees have to go to the dumpster, but that's a different issue. It seems difficult for a garbage truck to get in there and turn around. Is there an adequate spot to go in there, load the truck, and then turn around?
Well, we do have a turnaround at the end. It is a specific requirement of the program itself. There's to try to keep the smells and the stinks of the dumpster area remote from not only the event venue itself, but there happens to be 3 residences reasonably close to that too. So there's some remoteness there for the minimum amount of time that those dumpsters are going to be used during events or things of that sort. That the remoteness of it may be what can I say, not quite as convenient for those users for those short period of times. But those dumpsters are going to be there for the entire time for the neighbors. So negotiating and how we're going to get the waste management service down that aisle and get them turned around does need some further thought. So conceptually, we have it at the end of the parking lot, and I thank you for bringing that out, because that is something that is in the back of my mind, how we're going to negotiate the return of that truck out of the parking lot.
Fair enough, thank you. And then I have 2 more. I'll make it quick. I'm looking at the accessible parking and the accessible entrance. Do we know the distance between the 2? And then it seemed like the accessible entrance, if I'm looking at the site plan or the one that you have right here, I don't see where the walkway gets you bet there.
This, what we have done, what we've included is a loading zone. Those are, a formal loading zone is something that's acceptable for the American Disabilities Act. I'm going back to our desire not to expand the footprint of the existing, the impervious surface within this particular site. Our argument for providing long-term or permanent accessible parking across the street is no different than if you have an urban site and folks have to park, essentially off-site, even if it's an accessible parking place. So we've included a loading zone for somebody, with a disability that can be dropped off. We hope that argument, that approach is acceptable, but, there are backup plans if for some reason, that just is not gonna be adequate. But that is our approach, that's our proposal thus far, to congregate those, the cluster those across the street. You also notice that we're proposing another drop-off zone in front of the building for wedding parties or other people, that it can navigate those some steps, but for somebody with disabilities, we have a designated entrance for them.
Thank you. I'm looking at the plan. I didn't realize that was, I see arrows now. I should have realized that's for vehicles. And yes, you're right. I was looking for the continuity of the sidewalk. I thought that was like a walk up to the accessible entrance as well. And that was my question. Yes, you're absolutely correct with the drop-off zone for vehicles. So I apologize for that question. And then the last one, if you could go to page A200. Oh, let's see here. A201. Your bottom picture shows the rehabilitated barn door, and the top right photo, and maybe it's just a visual thing, but it does, in my mind's eye, I don't see that the barn door going in between the main door and the window. Is that?
Currently, that barn door is inside.
Correct, but it just seems, in the photo, it seems much, and I know it's a photo versus something, it just seems the rendering on the bottom, or the elevation on the bottom seems wider between the window and the existing door, and I'm just wondering, is that accurate, or is that just my mind's eye playing tricks with me?
It's your mind's eye.
Okay.
It is the perspective of the photo. It is actually almost the exact distance to that window. Currently, that door does reside on the inside. It resides exactly, if you can see my cursor.
Yep.
It resides, currently it's setting right there.
Then it was just photo optical illusion.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yep.
And that's all I got for you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the wonderful questions.
Brad, I think you're up next. Any questions?
Did you say Brad?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple. My concern would be about the neighbors' hours of service and noise, but it sounds like you're working with them. I think that's important. You wouldn't want to get all this work done and get that derailed because of that. It looks like there's a few residences close by. It sounds good that you're reaching out to them and working through that, early on. My only other comment was I do appreciate you being respectful to the older style of, the manufacturing and the historical significance to just the design itself, inside and out. I think that really adds to the city and the style of the city. So I really appreciate that you were going to a lot of effort to maintain that. So that's about my only comment. I really would like to see the bridge across the river to the recreational areas that would connect to Spring Street and downtown. I think that's very nice. It's a nice walkway for people, kids going, to baseball games without having to go on the highway. But it also adds to the city too. So those are very nice improvements. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Eric, please.
No questions, just echoing Brad's comments too about the historic elements of Columbus and maintaining that. I really enjoyed that as well, and it was a good presentation, so thank you for preparing that tonight and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So Kelly and Jamie and Sarah, I will probably be in contact about a future meeting with some staff review. And then obviously at a certain point, this will come back for a conditional use permit review and a recommendation to council. So thank you for taking the time to give such a thorough presentation tonight. And as I said, we'll be in touch here soon, okay?
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
All right, let's move on to 8A, deliberate and make recommendation to the council regarding ordinance to create section 114-19 of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances, establishing individual solar energy systems. Matt, do you want to take this, or do you want me
No,
to kind
I
of
will-
run through it, or?
I will kick it off. I think, so at the December meeting, I think we had a lot of debate and a lot of discussion on item 5 under the proposed ordinance. And I made, or actually it's number 1.5. I made some minor tweaks, which is the second one, but really, I guess Eric did a lot of heavy lifting and did a lot of research, and I thank you for that, Eric. And that was the first one with all the comments on it, and you can see, I left the track changes on so you can kind of see what is being added.
Can I shut those doors?
What?
Can I shut those?
Well, at least kind of. Yeah, we went over for open meetings. Is that better? Yeah, I know nobody's here, but technically we're in an open meeting, so I gotta leave that door. So, all right, sorry, I lost the train of thought there. I guess, do you want me to just read through the proposed changes? How do we want to do this? Do you want me?
I'll ask you, did all the commissioners get a chance to read this?
Yes.
Okay. If all the commissioners had a chance to read this and are prepared for giving comments, maybe we just go ahead and get to that. I know we've seen this a few times now, and I'm going to echo what Matt said about thanking Eric about doing the heavy lifting on that organization. That was super helpful to me. So if that's cool, let's go right to talking about it.
Yeah, you're right, and I'll just jump in too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, and who would have known I would tackle solar array and find such an interest in it coming off our last one, but, yeah, I guess just in efforts to, try to advance this, but I will just note, disclaimer on my comments, they're simply just draft, so, you know, again, kind of my 2 cents, and then just additional things that I saw out there with other ordinances. It was hard to find a lot of them, but I was able to find a handful, at least to provide the comments here and just add what I'm seeing elsewhere. So I guess either way, Matt, if you'd like to want to go through as a group, or you want me to go through mine and explain the comments, or.
Yeah, why don't you go through, I have some comments, but I guess I'm not on the plan commission, so I want to see, yes.
Sure, so, yeah, I guess these are my rough, off the cuff kind of comments and just, what I found out there, but, as Matt said, you know, number, or 1.5 was sort of where we, were kind of hung up on with, you know, the requirements there. But, sorry. So I guess just striking out, the tree and shrub placed as it grows, and just noting kind of general note of, you know, obstruction, just in efforts not to limit it to just a tree or shrub. And then I also thought maybe the timeframes, a little oddly specific. I think it made sense, but I think maybe holistically what I was seeing too with other ordinances on this was, an obstruction that would jeopardize the overall intended performance of it. So, again, like casting a shadow, it may cast a shadow, but it may not disrupt the intended performance or collection that that system is designed for. So I guess just, again, kind of generalizing that a little bit with the comments there. And then the last addition, I guess, to the paragraph, the city of Columbus may require some shadow diagrams specific to the installation to ensure compliance with provision. So sort of just bringing the city back into this requirement, I guess, as a way to kind of referee, that number 5, I guess, if we need to show proof that it is jeopardizing the performance or the collection, I guess just, falling back to, the city asking of that, not leaving it up to the owner to say that the neighbor can't be building that or planting that. And that was verbatim of what I saw, as they stated on another ordinance I saw of providing, the diagrams specific to the installation of compliance and such. So, any questions on that? I know that 5 was kind of the big one. I can go through the other comments, but if there's any questions on 5 before we go through the rest.
Do we want to pause here and talk about this one? I agree, Eric, this was sort of the biggest topic of conversation, I think. If we're willing to stop and pause there, I can kick off with a comment I had. So I really like your number 5. I think you are right in kind of striking that what'd you say, the oddly specific times, and you got into the intent, and I think that's good. I like your number 5, and I like Matt's number 6. During the conditional use permit process, the applicant may need, and I'm assuming that it's supposed to read, the applicant may need an agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we talked about that kind of right at the end of last meeting, and for me personally, that made me much more comfortable with this whole idea. So anyway, so those are my 2 comments there.
Yeah, I also know too, I added the word active, so, it's on an active individual solar system. At the end, we'll go through, kind of what I'm referring to there, but, I get into decommissioning and, what means it as still an active system, but again, trying to defend the, property owner who invested in this system while also, not limiting the neighbor to what they plan on doing on their property. So also try to keep it even. Yeah. And with this, again, I kind of err on the side of caution with all these notes. So again, I kind of dumped everything I was seeing. If there's something you're seeing that's maybe a little redundant or too much, it's, I think, to what your point earlier, that was just having that, having more that we can always strike later. Is probably the more conservative approach with things here. So if everyone's good on 5, I can keep rolling.
Yeah, I'm seeing
Yes.
a lot of nodding heads.
Okay, so we have number 6 with Matt's comments of the applicant to provide an agreement with the neighbors. I think that's good.
And please note, it says may, not shall, so it's not, the way it's written, it's not a requirement. It's as the plan commission is reviewing each one individually, it gives the discretion to the plan commission, so just FYI.
Right.
Anyways.
I noticed in some of the other ordinance, they did talk about locations and placements, so I just list those here, and I just pulled some more obvious or more common things that I saw from the various ordinance. So locations, I think, from the last couple meetings, we all agreed and edited for residential to be a rooftop mount. So we're keeping that in mind. But solar energy system shall be subject to the following regulations. Location subject to the following restrictions. Building mounted solar energy systems shall be allowed in all zoning districts defined above, which is listed there. Next page of placement. No solar energy system shall be mounted or fixed to any freestanding wall or fence. Residential installation shall be rooftop installation unless no.
Eric, quick question.
Yep.
When you
Yep.
say defined above, are you saying defined in under section 3 or
Section.
or 1-3?
Section 1, this is at 1, 2. Sorry, yes, section 1, 3.
I just want to make sure it's
Yep.
because
If
Sorry.
we could list that section.
no, I think we'd want to be so people aren't reading it and being like, what section above are they?
Yeah.
I think the more specific. As we're working through it, that was great the way it was. I'm just saying, I know when it gets to council and gets to city attorney, that doing a final review, we'd want to know exactly what we were referring to there. So
Words matter.
yeah.
Yeah, great point. I kind of get caught in
No,
these get edited, and they did 1, 3 changes, so
Nope.
just keeping that. But great point, because, being specific to that, so there's no interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, should it actually reference 1-2? Because 1-2 says all zoning districts.
Yeah, I think that's where I intended, and then, really, this ordinance was really just residential, right? Is where it applies. So,
No. The
some of
proposed
other
ordinance
ordinances
did,
I saw captured more than that, but.
no, the proposed ordinance did have commercial, but I guess now that you say that, I guess you're right, and it makes me think that maybe section 6 dictating location and placement might be able to replace most of section 3. Yes, I totally agree. Or at least elements of 3 should get pulled out and inserted into 6. Yeah, there were some organizational things about that were. It seemed a little redundant. Yeah, and conflicting in some places. So, just to reiterate, Matt, I would agree with you that section or paragraph 1-2 is the reference for which zoning districts this is allowed in. 1-3 should get stricken, but anything applicable or anything worthwhile having in this ordinance should get absorbed into 6, such as, talking about in commercial or industrial zone districts, where do they go, right? Those are placement issues which belong under 6B. I'm not sold on this whole thing about accessories, that it has to meet the requirements of accessory structures in residential, because 6B then talks about all of the restrictions on locations. So I think it doesn't necessarily need to meet requirements of accessory structures. It needs to comply with all the things that we would outline in 6B. So essentially move the second paragraph or second sentence under section 1-3, where it says in commercial or industrial zone districts, individual solar energy system shall comply with the height limits in side yard and rear setbacks for accessory structures. Yes, right. That doesn't call it an accessory structure. It merely references that section to tell you what some of the restrictions are, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Similarly, the third sentence in 3, individual solar energy systems are allowed in the front yard of commercial or industrial zone properties. That would be another bullet point under 6B.
So really, it's just getting rid of that first sentence then.
Yeah. Yeah, and moving the other two sentences to a more appropriate location. Sorry, I realize I commandeered
Okay,
the...
so, and let me throw one more monkey in the wrench then. Do we want me to put, under item number 6 that I proposed on the other ordinance? Do you want me to just put that, number 7? Number 8? Just so we're clear on where it's numbered?
The sentence, during the conditional use permit
Yeah.
process, the applicant may need, yeah, that probably belongs as,
1(8).
parentheses 8, sure.
Well, I just want to make sure, you know, if.
Well,
we're
actually,
making-
getting number 3, everything's gonna move up one, so,
Oh,
anyway. But yeah, that's its standalone, number in parentheses.
Yeah, I think that's good.
okay, so then 3, 4, 5. So then we're actually moving that to section 5, and then it's gonna be 1(7) is gonna be. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I have it all organized.
Mhm.
All right.
I got a couple of more organizational items. Sorry, Brad, were you starting to pipe up?
Eric.
Eric was?
No, not me.
Oh, okay.
Nope, just continuing if everybody's good with where we're at so far.
Yeah, I got a couple more organizational things, but why don't you finish walking us through your thought process for the other additions?
No problem. So we were at residential installation shall be rooftop installation. So I'm back to 6B, second bullet point. Residential installation shall be rooftop installation unless no other location for the solar energy equipment is feasible. The city of Columbus may require a sun and shadow diagram specific to the installation to ensure compliance with this provision. Solar energy system panels and buildings mounts shall be installed per manufacturer specifications. And in zoning, or in residential zoning districts and the central business district, a solar energy system for aesthetic reasons shall not be located in the front slope of a pitched roof unless no other location for the solar energy equipment is feasible. The city of Columbus may require just similar kind of requirement as above. In this one, I was seeing as a theme, I think it, just from a aesthetic standpoint of, trying to maintain the front of the house look, gearing towards putting on the back, if possible. If that, doesn't allow the intended performance or best performance, just kind of leaves it up. I think, again, I just saw this one, I'm not too tied to it, but I just saw this one a lot in efforts to try to take it off the visibility of the front of the house, I guess, is probably the intent there.
Eric, what's that,
Sorry?
what section was that?
Item 16B under placement, and that was bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the final bullet point there under 16B was glare. So solar energy system components shall be designed with the reflective coating, or at least shall not produce glare that would constitute a nuisance to the following, but not limited to occupants of neighboring properties, aircrafts, persons, vehicles traveling adjacent to roadways. I'm assuming most solar panel these days have that anti-reflective coating to it. But again, this was something I did see that was another comment.
Can I pause you for a moment?
Paul has a comment.
Yep.
Paul, please.
If I may comment real quick. I'm going backwards a little bit, first moment. B, second bullet point. I'm troubled by maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but I'm troubled by the language of residential installation shall be rooftop installation unless no other location for the solar energy equipment is feasible. I'm struggling on the unless no other location. I read it a couple times and maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but it does not make sense to me.
Yeah, so I think it was, so you're talking about the bullet point 4, I think the
No, bullet point 2.
Second bullet point.
Residential installation shall be rooftop installation unless no other location for the solar.
Oh, yeah, and I think I was probably copy paste because we're saying rooftop only for residential, right? So, yeah.
Yeah,
that conflicts
right,
with
that-
what we've been rolling with.
I don't understand the wording of that either.
And I didn't want to interrupt you when you were flowing along. I forgot to wait for a natural pause, so that's why I'm going backwards right now. I apologize.
It seems like the intent of that should be residential installation shall be rooftop installation unless such location is infeasible. Something like that, right? Unless it's not feasible to put it on the, or if it's not feasible to put it on the rooftop, we'd consider some other location. But the rooftop is primary location number one that this needs to go. You applicants need to demonstrate that it's not feasible. for
So
us to
I
consider
wasn't
anything
reading
else.
it that way. It sounded to me as like, it was like, if it's not feasible on the site elsewhere, then it's on the roof. That's why I'm saying,
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I think the intent should be,
okay.
right, put it on the roof unless you applicant show the commission that that is not a feasible location for you. Is that, Eric, does that capture the essence of what you believe
Yeah, yep, that was,
okay.
yeah, again, that was just kind of my rough wording of what our intent was, just of a rooftop installation.
And I like the glare, and I'm sorry, I like the glare. Notice, yes, you're right. Probably all of them are specified that way, but I like the language in there because, we all know what a mirror does, and you drive by and all of a sudden you see the back of somebody's vehicle and it's just blinding you, and it's just good to put it in there because again, you can't be too specific. You can't be enough specific. So I like that. Thank you.
So I didn't quite catch all of that, but I think that needs to be reworded because I don't understand it either. I know what the intent is, but since we're arguing over it, maybe the words need to be changed to be more blunt, like Uriah said, is, rooftop is primary, unless that doesn't work, then you could put it somewhere else. But the words are confusing in this sentence, the way it is.
I took a stab, and I'm not sure this is perfect either, but when you say shall be rooftop installation, unless that a rooftop installation is not feasible due to a hardship. Because when you get into like Board of Zoning appeals and things of that nature, you're supposed to show some sort of hardship. So I'm not sure that's wordsmithed quite right, but I mean that I think putting language in there that says if you're a residential property owner, you got to show that it can't just be a mere inconvenience that you don't want to put it on your roof. It's got to be like a legitimate,
Site constraining and physical.
Right, like for instance, there's existing large neighboring trees that overshadow your entire roof.
Yes.
Well, you wouldn't put it on there, right?
and I
And you can
believe-
demonstrate that and then
Yeah.
consider some other location.
Exactly.
And honestly, and I think Katie hit on this at the last meeting, a vast majority of our community is really not going to be able to under the ordinance,
you know, because it's very heavily treed in the older parts of our community, which I think is a great thing, but, you know, if you're looking to buy a property where you want to put a solar array ordinance, you're probably going to be looking at a newer subdivision where either there isn't as much trees, or as many trees, or they're not as well grown. But even then, you'd still have to obviously put some thought into where you're putting the solar panels. But anyways, that's, I guess, how does everybody feel about adding something that I just try to describe as making it tied to a hardship? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think that's more demonstrative of the
Intent.
actual intent than the language in here is, yeah.
Okay.
I just got tripped up when I read it, and I said, I got a, time out here,
Yeah. Yes, okay. No, sorry.
I sort of kept the design intent of the system, I guess, in mind, that if a rooftop application, wasn't gonna give them the performance that they were requiring, but sort of left it open for that. But yeah, I do see how this is a little confusing and conflicting, so I like what you had, Matt.
Okay.
And along those lines, then bullet 4, saying the solar system shall not be located in the front slope of a pitched roof unless no other location is feasible. I'm not sure how that reads. The location of the solar panel is going to be 90% driven by the direct location of the sun. So if the front slope is where the sun is, there's no other reasonable place. You can put it on the other side, but the performance would be so drastic reduced, it's not feasible. All I would say is you should define feasible, like, unacceptable system performance or something. Because, yeah, I think the feasible part is the problem I have is what's the definition of that? Because you can put it on any of the roofs and it'll still work, but it won't be economical unless it's that main roof, especially since we're in Wisconsin, you have to have it in the primary location.
Yeah, as Brad was talking, I was trying to write down the item under the second bullet point, and the thought crossed my mind that, the other thing Plan Commission could recommend to council is just say residential installation shall be rooftop installation only, and then at that point, their only alternative would be to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to show that hardship, to have it at some other location, because this will be part of our zoning code. So that is the other option for that one. So, sorry to jump around.
Yeah.
But.
Well, that's a nice idea, Matt. Although I guess I would say is most of this sounds like it's pretty well laid out.
Mm-hmm.
So would make, the work's already been done to figure this out. You're right, your mechanism would work, but then they would have to establish, well, is it okay to put it in somebody's backyard? What are they gonna do about trees and the neighbors? They might have to revisit this entire problem, where it sounds like this is pretty good. So I think I'd maybe, I don't know, consider either or both, or putting some kind of addendum in there that says, the rooftop solar's fine. Otherwise, talk to the, get a permission use conditional use.
Yeah.
Conditional use permit. And here's the rules or the guidelines that has already been laid out here. So I think this is a lot of valuable work.
No, I agree.
Brad, are you kind of saying it might inadvertently have a lot of things end up at Board of Appeals?
No, I get his point. The conditional use permit should be able to address all this.
Right.
Rather than having to go to the board. After hearing that, I agree with him.
Getting back to the term hardship or feasible, I mean, is it reasonable to put, say, and this is just probably the engineer and me speaking, but is it reasonable to put a like percentage maximum output limit, right? If by putting it on the roof in our specified locations, you're getting at least 85 or 80% of its expected output, or 65 or whatever number, right? Then that's what you need to go with. And if it's below that, then you're kind of eligible to have it somewhere else. That might be a little more than what we can really consider at tonight's meeting,
Yeah.
fashioning this, but I'm hearing your point, Brad, that a little better definition of feasible needs to maybe work its way in there at some point.
You're right. I like your idea and your point to that. I guess the only question I have, and maybe I'm not an engineer, I'm an architect, but how do you know the output until you have already placed it? You know, and you can do, I guess, feasibility studies, but, you know, like, once it's there and then, oh, it didn't hit this, then you have to sort of deconstruct it and put it elsewhere, or other, I guess, you could do a simulated mock-up, right? But is that, I guess, what's your intent with that? Because it just seems like if you're
Yeah,
on there, you
it's
have
the
to
difference
take.
between a design standard and a performance standard,
Yep, okay.
right? So by design, if you've looked at this rooftop and because it's in, you know, it's not in shadow and it's getting exposure X amount of time during a day, given a particular product, you should
It
be able to
should
make
do
an
that.
estimate of saying it's going to get this much.
Gotcha.
Now, whether that's true in reality or not,
Well,
that's immaterial.
fair enough. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I had to bring up the point, sorry.
The one thing I would say is that the height, the 4 feet is very consistent with what I've seen in other codes too, so I mean, not to interject there and steal Eric's thunder, but that seems pretty, I think, reasonable to me at this point.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I saw that on a couple other ordinances. I didn't know if 4 was an applicable one for Columbus, or if we even cared about this one, but just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
As we're concerned about aesthetics above in the placement sections too,
Mhm.
so that covers 6C on height, and then 6D, I wasn't sure about, I'm sure building permits would apply for this, there's probably some electrical code and permits there as well, so I don't know what you like to typically see there, Matt, to tie all those parties together in terms of permits and codes and departments of the building end of it here, but just listing a permit would be required.
I think that the third bullet point under B actually belongs with D. System panels, building mounts be installed per manufacturer's specifications. That seems more of a code compliance issue than a placement issue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, where you're at?
Third bullet point under B, it talks about that
Yep,
it needs
I
to be
got you.
installed per manufacturer specifications. That belongs with the code permits and code compliance. The glare issue actually should be outdented.
Yeah, the building permit would be needed for the electrical. Just to be a little bit more all-encompassing, I would say in all other city ordinances shall be followed rather than zoning, because, I mean, the city zoning code's only one chapter. There could be
Yeah.
other things that come into play that I can't think of right now. I know at a certain point here, property maintenance is probably gonna be broken out from the zoning code, so, you know, I think that would just be my recommendation. I don't, you know, I'll interject just to save a little time. Looking at 7, I think 7 was something that was, I think it's a good thing, because then it gives us some authority when people don't use them anymore. The only thing that I guess I would have a concern, maybe not a concern over, just want some discussion on, is under B, they'll have 12 months. I get that you're not going to get up on your roof and take it down in the middle of winter, but 12 months seems like an awfully long time, you know, I mean, you know, if you're in the depth, like right now, what, it's January 14th? So if I gave somebody 6 months, that would give them to what, July 14th? Like that, I mean, you know, I think 180 days is more than enough time to remove something like that.
I would agree.
Uh,
I would agree.
So, and I would use 180 days rather than months, just because. But that would be my one comment.
And I like I like the addition of 7 because, in my mind's eye, it's like seeing, old antennas on the, you know, like giant antennas, into the skyscraper zone, on the side of a building that are probably no longer being used. Maybe they are, but they look like an eyesore. And, you know, if something's obviously not being used, it detracts from a potentially better view from, you know, from neighbors' perspective or whatnot.
How do you,
This was sort of added back to our item 5, you know, just again, noting that it protects the investor under an active system, so if the neighbor still wants to plant their tree and it's no longer active, it's, to your point, Matt, it gives us some authority to deem it as no longer active, and this ordinance no longer applies under their protection, so.
In under A, I think I would change the word perceived to something like considered or determined to be discontinued, like something, because perceived.
Determined, I like, yes.
I think perceived is, there's too much vagueness to that.
Interpretation, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
considered, presumed?
I like determined.
That's one that I'll let Paul Johnson
Yeah.
look at and revise. But I mean, I get, but the decommissioning I think is helpful because, you know, what happens when these things become an issue? I'd rather have it in the initial ordinance than coming back to the plan commission a year later, or 5 years later, saying, oh, we have this
darn.
problem
Yeah.
one, and we should really fix our ordinance. So I really appreciated that. So, I guess I'll open this for any more comments, but I feel comfortable with what we have. I guess going around, Uriah, Paul, why don't we just go around Robin? Uriah, with the comments, how do you feel about where we're at?
I feel like I would support recommending this to council. Given the edits we make tonight, I'd be comfortable with that. I'd be more comfortable with a fresh draft next meeting that we cleanly say, this is it, move on. So I'd be comfortable with either. I'd be more comfortable with waiting, but I also understand that this has been going on some time, so. And I trust that,
Yeah.
I know you've been making a lot of notes and moving stuff around, and I think that it would be pretty good looking by the time you got done slicing and dicing.
No, and not to take the wind out of your sails, that anything that you recommend could ultimately be altered anyways at the council level. And, you know, I think at a certain point, you know, as I alluded to, the city attorney will need to review this and weigh in. So some of the things he might recommend tweaking here and there. So that, just take that for what it's worth. I mean, I just, you know, Paul.
I like the fact that I feel comfortable with the edits that are made as well. I do agree. I'd like to see a I mean, trust but verify is what they say. I like the fact that it was done, and I don't think there's any rush to. I would rather do it right rather than rush it through, and that's my whole motif with council as well. You know, well, I know we're talking about this right now. We've been talking about it, but what's another meeting? You know, make sure it's absolutely right, rather than having to revisit back later on and have another number 5 come at us and say, well, this isn't right, and we didn't spend enough time on the entire thing.
So I guess, Eric, I'll go to you next.
I agree with all that. I myself, you know, I think we
All right,
clean up our edits from the night and get a clean draft and.
that's
we'll
fine.
set up report.
I'm not in a hurry either, so I'm assuming, Brad, are you in agreement that if we came back with a fresh draft at the next meeting, took 2 minutes and moved this forward? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I've got some more comments, but for that part of the process, I'd be fine with that.
Okay. Well, then
I-
I guess we need a motion.
I have a procedural question for you, Matt. How much of this can we view and comment on and converse about
Outside of
over
meetings.
email outside of this meeting without getting into open meeting issues?
Well, technically, you can send a comment directly to me, but once you start hitting reply all,
Mm-hmm.
that's where issues can come in. But I mean, if they're strictly just comments and they're not anything that's an actionable item, I think you're okay. I still would.
It's
rather-
that reply all issue. That's
yeah.
right.
Once it's an interaction with everybody or more than 4 people that make up a quorum, then you meet that threshold. Or
Okay.
as I understand it, that's when you meet that threshold.
Right.
I would, as I said, I'd rather have the comments directed individually towards
Sure.
me.
Okay.
You know, it ultimately, you know, I'm very confident that anything that we've been discussing, it's done in an open meeting.
Right.
And, so, but that being said, let's respect the state laws and
Sure.
and make sure we're doing things
Okay.
properly.
Can I suggest that if our choice tonight is to wait to see a fresh copy, that when you create, I assume you'll take our comment, edit this document, and forward it to Mr. Johnson,
Yep.
that you also send it to commission members?
Before or after his comments.
At the same time you send it to
Okay.
him, but not as a copy. You might have to send individual emails to each one of us. I don't know.
No,
I don't know how that
I'll
works.
just send it to everybody and just say, do not hit reply all, or
Okay.
you're getting the wrath of Matt.
Don't let that happen to you. All right. So anyway, so if that's our decision tonight, then we'll entertain a motion here in a moment. But
Hey, you're right, I've got a couple more comments.
yeah,
For 7B, did Matt suggest 180 days for the time period on B?
Yes,
So my comment would be, I'd be more comfortable with a longer period of time for someone, you know, if they decided they were gonna replace their roof at the same time they decommissioned this thing, they may have to have a different type of time frame. You can't just rip it off. You know, so they may have to time it with, okay, I'm replacing the roof next summer because I need the entire summer for the roof or whatever it is. But I think I would prefer something more like 6 months for that section.
That is
It
180
gives you
days.
12 months in A to say that the system failed, and you take a while to figure out whether it's really broken, can you replace the inverters, can you replace the panels, or whatever, and then you come to that decision. Now you've got some time to figure out how does this fit with fixing my roof or replacing the roof. I think that gives them a few more options, and I don't think that if this panel system is not horribly ugly for its 10 or 20-year lifetime, then I think it could wait, you know, another year or another 6 months. So I don't see a problem with leaving that open so that the homeowner would have some options to getting that replaced.
no, that is a good point. The one thing that I guess, if we want to have some discretion in this, we could always have them have to notify the zoning administrator within X amount of days of their plan for removal of the solar energy system. Something along that line, if that makes sense. So they would have to contact me and say, hey, I'm gonna remove it in 3 months. I'm gonna remove it in 2 years. And, that's probably giving me too much discretion. Probably I don't want that, but, I was just thinking that might be a way to provide some flexibility to the property owner and still, maintain the solar, array properly. If that makes sense.
Something I've seen done is that there's a statutory requirement of, say 180 days, but then there's a provision that up to, say, 2 extensions of 180 days each can be given upon request in writing with cause. Right? So out of the gate, you have 180 days to take it down, but then, like Brad said, if somebody says, well, I was planning on doing my roof next year, can I have, another 6 months, can I have a 6 months extension? Right? And they've provided a reason why they want an extension, then you can grant it. But it doesn't go on to infinity, right? Because you're going to have somebody, some wise guy out there that says, oh yeah, I'll take it down in 7 years. Right? And if you let somebody completely write their own time ticket.
Yeah.
Can I go back to 7A for a moment?
Sure.
I like that option. You're right, that sounds nice.
7A, I just, while we're talking, I'm rereading it, and at the risk of reading it aloud here, the owner of a solar energy system is required to notify the city of Columbus immediately. Well, upon cessation or the discontinuation of the operation. Well, let's say going to B, they need more time. Well, we just won't tell the city. So, you know what I'm saying? So there's really nothing in there. There's no teeth saying, how would we know by looking at it that it's not operational? Does the power, water and light determine that there's no, I don't know how that works. I'm not the engineer, but how would we know, or somebody would know that makes that determination to use, instead of perceived, we say determine. Who's determining that, and that, when does that clock start? Do you know what I'm trying to say, Uriah?
Yeah, I thought of the same thing too, Paul, right? It's a self-reporting, right? It's a self-reporting issue.
The first sentence would be a self-reporting, the owner is required to do it, but then on the second one is the system shall be perceived to be determined to be discontinued if no electricity is generated. So that's where water and light, or whomever, I'm assuming it's going to be water and light for most of the city, would have data that says, the solar, individual solar system generated so much electricity, which offset their electric bill by so much. Well, if they have a known, house or property that has a solar system or individual solar energy system, and it's no longer making electricity, they would know.
Okay, here's an issue. We're the left hand, and the water and light company is the right hand. Does the right hand always know what the left hand is doing? So, would they know enough to say, hey, zoning commission, they're out of compliance because, or they might just say internally, say, do you follow? I'm not sure
I follow what you're saying. It's primarily self-reporting, but there are other mechanisms by which it might be reported. And what's really the issue here? It's an aesthetic issue, right? That there's some decrepit, not maintained system on somebody's roof or elsewhere in their yard. Okay, if it gets to that state, somebody's going to lodge a complaint. Either one of our own city employees is going to notice, or a neighbor is going to complain, or there's going to be maybe they're selling the house and there's going to be a house inspection that goes along with that, and that's going to, I would presume,
trigger. I just
show up
want
on
to
the
look for that
report.
trigger.
So really, what we're trying to avoid is decrepitude of property and the aesthetics that go with that. So it's less about the operability of it and more about the aesthetics. The operability of it is a way to get to that issue before it becomes an issue, but I don't know,
Maybe I'm not
I-
making myself clear, but as long as you
no,
know what I'm.
I know what you're saying,
Okay.
and that somebody would avoid reporting it. Okay, yeah, right, my dog doesn't have its dog license. Nobody, the dog police aren't going into people's houses and checking tags.
Right, right.
But eventually, there's some mechanism.
I'm
that
just tying
would-
it back to
that would
the
catch
word
that out.
determined, you know,
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah.
I'm not
The
trying to
rest of the
belabor this,
commission,
but-
did that make sense, what I was saying?
No, yeah, well, it made sense to me. And you're right, it's gonna be, some of it's gonna be hard to catch when it first happens, but usually it's gonna be, I mean, this is gonna be there to give us protection when there are those when we get those property maintenance complaints, and I can call up, Water and Light and say, hey, has this solar array actually been creating any electricity over the last, let's say, no, this hasn't created any electricity since 1985. And they'd be like, oh, all right, well, that's pretty easy to determine that it's no longer in use. And then we can send them a letter saying you have, 180 days to remove this from your property, and please contact me if you have any questions.
Now, I have a tangent, and bear with me, it'll make sense, but, again, I'm not trying to belabor this meeting, make it go on until
No,
midnight,
it's
but,
okay.
if it has been determined that it has not produced any electricity in a 12-month period, all right, so let's say 5 months, it's off, we disconnect it, blah, blah, you turn on for 3 days, and then you turn off for another 6 months. And my equation to that is like, the liquor license, if an establishment is not open for at least 180 days a year.
I think we're getting too deep in the weeds
Okay.
on that, because,
If the
I
thing
mean-
works, somebody's gonna have it on.
yeah, I mean,
Right, so they're differing
But,
their energy bill.
I'm saying, let's say there's a complaint, it hasn't been on for 11 months, well, we'll turn it on for quick so we can regenerate our year time. I'm in too deep in the weeds, I'll admit that, so I'll shut up.
I wasn't saying that specific, I mean, I think if you have one on your property, you're gonna want the benefit of, hey, I spent $30,000 on one of these things, and I'm saving $30 a month on my electric bill, or you bought a house and you paid for it, and probably the value might have been a little higher than the house without a solar array, so you're gonna wanna get your use out of it. I think the intent behind this, as he said, is those that don't work anymore and they're not being maintained. It's trying to get at those. So
Fair enough.
all right. Well, I've heard that basically clean this up, bring it back to next meeting.
Since it's an agenda item, I think we need a
Motion, yes.
motion and some direction. So I'll entertain a motion to either table this for next meeting to see a fresh copy, or have the edits moved on to, or have it edited and moved on to council, or something else I'm not thinking of, but somebody come up with a motion.
I will make a motion to recommend to council that we approve this ordinance as edited, which, at that time, then council will have the opportunity to put it down as well. So I'm saying, I know I'm saying different things from what I said earlier, but I made a motion to say that I approve this ordinance to forward to council with the appropriate edits attached.
The one thing I guess I would just interject just for a second is that council's, this is not on the agenda for Tuesday, so this would go to the February 5th council meeting, I believe is the first meeting in February, which means we would meet on February 11th, and then this would go to the COW on February 11th, or February 5th, then Plan Commission would meet in between, and then it would go to council after, so there'd be a Plan Commission sandwiched in between the two council meetings, which means we would still have a chance to review it and maybe make a last comment if we felt we needed it. Just throwing that out there for discussion before there's a second, so I'll shut up now.
sorry, I think you need to clarify that. So Cal meets on the 5th, Plan Commission meets on the 11th, council meets the week after that. Does this go to council twice? Does an ordinance?
Ordinance, yes.
Goes twice. Okay, so there will be the first reading at Cal on the 5th. We could look at it and provide comments at our meeting on the 11th,
Yeah,
and then final consideration at council the following week, whatever date that is.
yeah, it would be the following Tuesday.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Other commissioners, you got that? All right, so Paul's motion was to go ahead and have Matt make the edits and send it to council for consideration, as opposed to bringing it here first. But given the council schedule, we would actually be able to see it sort of in between the two
Yeah.
readings. Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I'm going to presume there's no further discussion. We have a motion and a second to have it edited and sent to council. All signify favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed. All right,
Awesome.
we have a plan.
We do. The last item's gonna be brief. I don't have any chapters to go through tonight. Just more of an update on the timeline. My goal as of right now, we have a final draft chapter for pretty much all the chapters. Revising some of the maps, but there will be a public hearing, probably not at the regular Plan Commission meeting date, but a special public hearing date sometime in February, is my anticipated goal, and then hopefully have this go to the COW on March. I should have the date in front of me, but I don't. The second meeting in March, and then hopefully have ready for a final approval in the April meeting. I've been working through a lot of the comp plan, and it's just, I know the Plan Commission's done a lot of review, and I thank you for the review and the comments. But the roadmap plan and the comp plan need to be finally adopted, and I think they're ready. It's just that's the timeline that we have to work with. So that's the goal. Hopefully we can meet it. As I said, a lot of the work's been done, so now it's just final edits and, making, quite frankly, I probably have to lock myself away for a week and just do it. But yeah, so just wanted to let everybody know what was going on with that, because I know we've reviewed this for a long time, and it's ready, so,
Plan Commission hosts the public hearing,
yes,
but council adopts the
Correct.
comp plan.
yes.
Okay. Do we
And that was
need,
in-
do we need to recommend to council after
Yes.
the public hearing? Okay.
Well, you'll recommend, yeah.
Right, public hearing, close the hearing,
Well,
make a recommendation, right?
Not necessarily, well, it could go that way, but most likely what's gonna happen is we'll just have one meeting to host a public hearing. And in that public hearing, there will be some sort of public informational kind of component to it. But my plan is our meeting in March will be, I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's gonna be for the second COW meeting. So it will go Plan Commission, COW, Council. If that makes sense. So I wanted to get it down in a nice timeline tonight, but I didn't. So I just verbally gave you an update.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You can give us a timeline at the February meeting.
Yes.
Right, yeah, okay.
Thank you for your time tonight. I told my wife that it would be done in an hour and a half, and I'd be home by 8:30.
So
I
you jinxed it.
apologize. Every
Okay.
time I make a prediction on a meeting, like, I'm way off, so I jinx it, so it's
I-
my fault.
You know what, I'll share the jinx, because I think I said the same thing to my wife. All right, that's it. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Alderman Pipeford will make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, I need a second.
I'll second that. Sorry, you guys went out a little bit with audio.
Oh,
Great. All right, motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.